My name is Samuel Lau. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the public sector here at Environics Analytics. And today we have a special presentation for everybody that addresses a critical and timely issue, which is supporting our growing senior population. Recognizing there's been a steady trend of growth among the aging population across all the municipalities at York Region, they've actually been at the forefront in an effort of enhancing the lives of its senior residents. And today we will learn about their proactive approach that they've taken for this trend and this future trend as well. So I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today, Judy Cotes-McLeod. And Judy is a senior program analyst on the York Region Senior Strategy team. She's been playing a key role within the team that was responsible for the development of a toolkit that has not only just helped York Region, but local municipalities as well as community organizations tailor their services and programs to promote better health, more social engagement, and ultimately a better quality of life for York Region seniors. So please join me in welcoming Judy to the stage.
Thanks, Sam. Great. Good afternoon, and thanks so much for that warm introduction, Sam. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today, to be part of this fantastic event, and to have the opportunity to share about our Seniors Target Group Toolkit. We put a lot of work into this project, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and most of the tears were mine, I have to say. And we had a few pandemic interruptions along the way. But in the end, we put together a great resource that's supporting planning for seniors. And when I say we had a small but mighty project team working on this project. Here with me today is Andre Gates, who is a data project specialist with our Data Analytics and Visualization Services branch in the region. Also here is Francis Martin Chang, the program manager of the Senior Strategy team. And somewhere in the audience is our special guest, our retired Commissioner of Community and Health Services, Catherine Chislett, who was our project sponsor, and she is a great champion of the Environics work. And we also had fantastic support from the Environics folks as well. So I'm going to start off the session today by providing some background about the project, the whys and hows of developing the target groups, and then I'll give you a quick look at the toolkit itself, the impacts we've identified, and the planning that's underway as part of our next steps. And we may have some time at the end if there's questions. Got to remember to click the slides. Okay, so you're probably very familiar with the story that's described here on the slide. York Region is experiencing a steadily aging population with growth occurring across all 9 of our local municipalities. By 2051, the baby boomers will all be over the age of 85. And over the next 30 years, the overall seniors population in York Region will more than double, and probably more importantly, that 75-plus population is going to more than triple. So the growth in the seniors population continues to be an important area of focus for the region, with many of our programs and services expected to feel the impact of this growth, in particular, paramedic services, long-term care, housing, and transit services. Similarly, a steadily aging population will also impact our local municipal programs and community organizations serving seniors, and they're providing important recreation, health, social, and other age-friendly initiatives. We're all striving to support seniors to age in the right place, connecting them to the right programs and services at the right times, and to foster healthy aging. So the important thing here to note is that seniors are not a homogeneous group. Did I do something? There we go, okay. In fact, there is a great variety in the group that we call seniors. We would never try to plan one program for an age group ranging from 0 to 35, so similarly, we shouldn't try to compare the interests and needs of someone who's 65 with someone who's 90 or even 100 plus. We know that seniors have many dimensions with differences based on cultural backgrounds, family compositions, sexual, gender, and racial identities, living situations, and income levels. And just as an example, in the 2021 census, there were 230 distinct ethnic origins in the region. So we as a region wanted to think about how to support service planners who must consider the diversity and variation in need when they're planning programs, services, and supports for seniors and their caregivers. The work to develop these target groups for York Region seniors began as an action in the original 2016 senior strategy under the priority area of keeping seniors healthier longer. And earlier this year, York Regional Council approved an update to the original strategy with the 2024 to 2027 York Region Plan to support seniors. And the target groups and the toolkit we've developed are part of a data action in our updated plan to share data and tools with our staff and community partners to help their program planning. So this toolkit is an important tool to plan for the impacts that this rapidly changing demographic will have on our programs and services, and to support aging in the right place, we need to target prevention and promotion programs, encourage healthy choices, behaviors, and self-care to keep seniors healthier for longer. So to be able to understand where to focus our efforts and to understand what is needed to support seniors, we needed to understand York Region seniors better, which led us to developing these target groups. So if you've done any work with Environics, I'm sure you are familiar with the elements on this timeline. A lot of work went into the development of the target groups, and we didn't do it alone. We brought in internal and external experts along the way to feed into this process. With funding from the Provincial Seniors Community Grant Program, we worked with Environics to lead us through the development of the target groups and to report on the insights about York Region seniors. In an initial workshop with Environics, our York Region staff identified 6 areas of vulnerabilities that they were seeing in their clients, those aged 65 years and older. These vulnerabilities were used to inform the target groups along with some identified York Region program data sources. We had a second workshop and we pulled the same group of internal staff together, used some external partners, brought in some external partners to validate the initial findings from Environics before the target group personification work got started. Not surprisingly, the Environics analysis resulted in an overwhelming amount of data. It was fantastic, but it was a lot of data. So we took those insights from Environics and developed the toolkit to ensure we were providing service planners with a clear understanding of this data on our seniors. So the purpose of developing the toolkit was to provide service planners who are not necessarily data folks, and I include myself in that label, with a simplified language version of the analysis, which resulted in a tool to inform their planning and broaden their outreach efforts to seniors so that our residents are aware of the services that are available to them. So as I mentioned, our internal staff group identified these 6 areas of vulnerabilities that they were seeing in their senior clients, and the target groups were built around these vulnerabilities. Now, having a vulnerability does not necessarily mean someone's not able to cope with the limitations or effects, and in fact, they may have the supports necessary to mitigate the effects of a vulnerability. But the target groups offer insights about these vulnerabilities and who is more likely to have them. So here you see the many data sources that were tapped into to develop the target groups and the alignment of our York Region data and the Environics data against each area of vulnerability. Our program data tells us about the seniors we know, the ones that are using our services, but we needed to make sure that we also captured the seniors that we don't know about, the ones that are not using our services, which is another way that the Environics data helped to fill in some of those gaps. There is no 100% answer available, but by bringing together all this data to develop the target groups, we have a solid evidence-based understanding of who York Region seniors are. So the result of all this analysis was the development of 7 target groups that captured 95% of York Region seniors. It's also important to note that while the target groups were developed based on the proportion and characteristics of seniors found in these groups, they do contain information about residents of all ages. So there's not just seniors in our target groups. Our base was postal codes containing higher proportions of seniors, which allowed us to capture 95% of the York Region senior population. So you probably noticed the names. We have intentionally categorized the target groups using letters A to G. And we moved to this naming convention to avoid some sensitivities around some of the original identifiers used by Environics. So to avoid using names that related to income in particular, like upscale or lower income. And there's an added bonus that using the letters, it encourages service planners to read the details rather than make assumptions about the group based on the name. So now I'm going to show you the toolkit. Here you can see that our graphic designer did a great job in bringing the target groups to life. So when you're in the document itself, the table of contents is clickable to get to the different sections easily. You can see that each of the 7 target groups are color-coded, which helps with the navigation of the information. And just a quick word on the layout, the sections at the beginning describe what the toolkit is and how to use it. Then there's 7 chapters on each of the target groups, all of which follow the same structure. And at the end, we have a set of appendices with some additional tools to support the use of the information in the toolkit. So we start off with the purpose and overview section, which sets the context and introduces the 7 target groups with a high-level overview of who is in each. We do note that the toolkit was developed for York Region staff and external organizations that deliver services on behalf of the region. It is intended for use for planning purposes only, and it's not a public-facing document, so you won't find this on our external-facing website. And decisions on who can receive the toolkit are the responsibility of the project team in conjunction with Environics. So here you see information to help understand the data in the toolkit. So we identify the data sources that we use for the analysis. We have a methodology section that describes how the target groups were developed and the co-design process that was used. We have an understanding the data section, and here we describe the data that is presented for each target group. Here we point out that the target groups do include information about residents of all ages, and we note that insights are clearly identify where information pertains to seniors in the target group or residents in the target group. It's also noted that insights in the document describe characteristics for each target group as compared to the York Region average. So behaviors are described as trends in line with, above, or below the York Region average. So here we have the last bit of the introduction sections. We have information about using the toolkit, which describes how the document's laid out with details about the information that's presented in each chapter. And each of these have been built around the 6 areas of vulnerability. And then we finish off this section with a reference of selected York Region statistics, that's hard to say, which are provided for comparison purposes. Okay, so here we have laid out the target group chapter, and you can see that it is the teal-themed Group E, and this is our group that has the most vulnerabilities. So each target group chapter begins with the cover page, which highlights the vulnerability legend. And this shows the rankings as established by Environics for each of these 6 areas of vulnerability. And this is a nice, quick and easy way to see how each target group is doing. There's a pie chart, which highlights the percentage of the total York Region seniors population that's included in this target group. And then there's a thumbnail map, which directs the reader to Appendix 5 for a larger sized map, because we really want service planners to be able to see where the seniors are located across all of our 9 local municipalities. So each target group chapter has 7 sections, and you can see under each header there is a bit of a blue text that provides a high-level statement about what information is going to follow in that section. So the chapter starts with a summary, and here we provide key bullets about the demographics, the behaviors, and the vulnerabilities that stand out about this group, information that makes it unique, or where it stands out as different from the York Region average. There's a demographic overview, and surprisingly, that's got demographic information in it. The next section is the financial overview, and here we provide a picture of the financial situation. This is our first area of vulnerability, and beside each of these headings, you're going to see the vulnerability index repeated as a reminder about how this group is doing. So for the finance section, you see that there's the red X. Next up is social isolation, and here is information about connections to families, friends, and neighbors, which is super important. Next up, we have our health summary, and this provides information about our next 3 areas of vulnerability: mental health, chronic disease, and physical limitations. And again, you see those vulnerability legends beside each heading. Digital literacy is our final area of vulnerability, and this section is helpful to understand how to reach or engage this group. So here we've got information about media habits, social media habits, and mobile behaviors. So this is about the mediums they prefer, the platforms they use, how and when they use them, about the devices they own, and how they use them. And then we round out the chapter with other observations. We've got a psychographic overview about the values and attitudes that they subscribe to, and then sports and leisure, which provides information about the activities they like to take part in and how they like to spend their time. And here, at the end of the document, we have our appendices. So we've highlighted 3 on the slide. We've got the summary of the vulnerability legends, which is really neatly shows how each group is doing compared to the others. Appendix 4 just provides an overview or a summary of various statistics and information for each of the target groups. And then Appendix 5 is the maps, a set of maps which provides a visual on the concentration of where in York Region each target group is located. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the toolkit has been used and what our next steps are. So having target groups of York Region seniors has meant that we're better able to understand our residents and personalize services for them, which leads to better engagement, more uptake, and overall better experience for our seniors. So in creating the toolkit was our way of sharing this information with our service planners. So a few examples of how the toolkit has been used. We have a Unionville Seniors Hub project team that's leveraged the Environics data from the Unionville Hub geographic area, and we overlaid it with the seniors target groups to provide a deeper understanding of the demographics surrounding the hub's location. As planning continues for this project, this information will be used to inform program design, service delivery, and communication strategies for the hub. Chats, which is a community partner that supports York Region seniors and their caregivers, have used the toolkit insights to support grant applications and funding requests. They've also used it to inform their communications and engagement planning as well. Our senior strategy team, we use the toolkit to reach our senior target audiences as part of our engagement plan for the senior strategy refresh. And our York Region Public Health branch has similarly used the toolkit to inform audience analysis as well. So we've recently completed a survey on the toolkit, and we are working through the analysis, but we were looking to seek feedback from our service planners about how it was used, how it was helpful, where it might be tweaked, and here you can see some of the responses in the feedback on the slide. So, but overall, the toolkit was well received, and our service planners found it helpful. So our next steps. So we know that best practice is to refresh data every 2 years, and we are a bit behind on that due to the pandemic, but we are moving ahead on that work now. The feedback survey that I just mentioned will help us inform this next iteration of the toolkit. We are in the process of gathering our updated data from our internal programs and looking at Environics data products as well, evaluating what is new and what we might include. So we will refresh the target groups and the personifications, which will lead us to our refreshed toolkit. So we are looking at developing a use case to help us in promoting this new version of the toolkit. So that finishes off what I have to say, and if there are any questions, we'd love to hear them. And I can't see a darn thing. And I'm calling a friend, Andre.
Thank you so much. So actually I have 2 questions. So this kind of toolkit is based on the current population in the age range of 65 plus, right? So I was wondering if the same use case or the same kind of methodology would be applicable to people who are approaching this age range and then get prepared for accommodating those needs and, maybe building some kind of services, additional services, or customizing the services for them.
Yeah, that is something that we are very aware of the pre-seniors, and we've been looking at that. We looked at the pre-senior group to inform our refresh of our original strategy, and I know Andre will have something to say about how that works with the tool, with the target groups and the personifications. Come up.
Not too much to add to that, but yeah, we did look at that and how do we help people age in place. So looking at that 55 to 65 group, with this initial toolkit, we didn't dive into that too much, but we are hoping to look at that more with the new toolkit to, again, make sure the programs and services are what's needed. We do license, obviously, lots of the data, so we do have that in-house as well. So not outside of the toolkits, we have looked at that as well to help inform some of the service planning. But again, we'll factor it more heavily into this version of the toolkit. So this was the first go around.
Sorry, is that it?
The toolkit that you mentioned, about the 6 areas of vulnerabilities for seniors.
Sorry, I missed the first part.
The toolkit gave you a good insight into the 6 areas of vulnerabilities for the seniors, and this was for the York region. How can it be extrapolated for the entire Canadian population? Can it be generalized or not?
Was that? Okay. This is my data pro here.
Probably a little tough to do that. We brought in, we had 70 people, different partners that support all of our programs. Ontario Works, who's calling into. We have Access York, where people can call in for these programs and services, and all of our adult day program data and things. So those are very specific to York region, and we are very multicultural, region with the 9 municipalities. We have. I think currently we have 48 out of all of the segments, inside of your region. So I would say it's going to be pretty specific to the areas that you're looking at. Again, we know that our southern 3 are very different from our northern 6, when we're talking about things. So I think it would be kind of hard to, I don't think they're too far off looking at those areas, but I still think you might have some nuances depending on where you're looking from a geography perspective, from a country level.
If I may.
Yeah.
I'll just add, while this is specific to York region, this data is applicable across all of Canada. We have similar data across all of Canada, and then we could actually build a very similar segmentation system to help us look at Canada-wide or specific provinces or regions as well. There's a question back there.
I heard that you were updating the group with the newer data, so I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but have you noticed any changes in the cluster groups from one year to the next? Are there any major patterns that you can discern just in your initial updating of the data?
You're just starting, so
We're
not.
just
Yeah, give us another 6 months, and we might be able to answer that for you.
You may have mentioned it, I missed it probably. Is there any plan to make use of mobile data for the Unionville hub to isolate the users of that hub?
That's Andre.
Sorry, I'm in the group that support all 15 lines of business in the region, not just CHS, so speaking to that. The mobile data at York Region is something we definitely would love to bring in. It's not something we've been able to build a business case that the folks that have the money would like to spend on the data. We have lots of ideas. I'm in the Data Analytics and Visualization Services group, so we have no shortage of ideas on how to use that. So we would love to do that. We've talked about getting it in to look at our GO train stations and our transit stations and geofencing those and understanding the usage, but we're not there yet. So using it for the Unionville hub, at this point, not on the list, but they were able to overlay the toolkits and other data that we have and program data, so to help figure out which services need to be in there to support the seniors in that area. Our group's done analytics on how far people are willing to drive. For those, there's some that'll live in it and some that'll come to support, to use the services, so there's a bit of a mix, but not at this point.
Thanks.
Question. Thank you.
I was wondering if, because you restricted the usage of the dissemination of the toolkit, did that serve you in controlling which audience it ended up with, or did you have challenges making sure it was disseminated adequately?
Being part of this organization, we sit at so many tables. So I don't think there's any shortage of disseminating it. Again, we did sort of work to make sure that the groups that we're sharing it with are the ones that are helping us serve those seniors. So that's where that sort of restriction came. We didn't want it, all over the place. And again, hence the names of them as well, because we have to be very sensitive to the population. We don't want a service provider saying to someone, oh, you're one of the low income, whatever the name was. So that's where the naming came in. So I don't think there's any shortage of being able to disseminate it. I would say we probably had more people saying, can I have it? And we had to sort of consider them on a case-by-case basis versus how far it went out.
Yeah, we had a list, we shared it internally, broadly across the organization, and then we had lists of organizations that we work with quite regularly, and we just worked with Environics to make sure that it was kosher to share, and so it did go to quite a number of external organizations as well as our internal staff. So we'll do that again as we're moving forward, and get it out to as many people as we want, because ultimately, it's a product that's going to help service planning. We want to get it into the hands of folks that can do that.
Because again, as an upper tier municipality, we also support transit and public works, all the water and everything, and waste collection. So there's a lot of seniors, obviously, in that space too. So it's been very broadly used.
I imagined it helped place more value on it because it was a little bit restricted, and so I can see how that might have worked in your favor also, that here's a really valuable resource that we have.